Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So here we are in class meeting number 4, section 4, and we left off with Nelson just about to say something. Do you remember what it was, Nelson?
No. I was talking about D&D.
Okay.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And if you had a car, you'd still be going to it, but what you hated the most was filling out those character sheets.
Yeah. The experience was really fun, and filling out the character sheets was really boring. What I really did like about the game, though, was the human interactions. Kind of, basically, I was just agreeing with you in a very long-winded way, was that the stats and the character sheets and that stuff didn't really matter as much as the interaction with my party and the interaction with, not with the DM, but with the environment that the DM created.
See, and I go all the way back again to World of Warcraft, because that's the MMO that I've got well over 2,000 hours invested in, and I had no desire to play it. I was not interested in it at all. My daughter and I always made fun of other people who really geeked out playing it, and so of course I get made fun of all the time now. And it wasn't until Terry and Toastich really pressured me into finally getting in and playing with them, and it was so, and then Angela joined in with us, so it was the 4 of us, and it was so much fun trying to come up with strategies on how to get past specific places or get specific quests completed. And back in those days, a couple years ago, I had no concept of a DPSer, a tank, a healer, and having a well-rounded team of 5 for trying to do instances. So for those of you that play World of Warcraft, you can only imagine, with Terry being a clothy, he was a warlock, myself a mage, Angela a hunter, and Toastich was a paladin, and that was it. There's just the 4 of us. Imagine us trying to take on some of the instances that we did without the proper setup of a tank and your healer, and we didn't even learn about that stuff until we had already been at level 80, which is pretty funny because we were kind of isolated in our own little bubble, playing the game every day, hours and hours, back to back over a 2-week Christmas break, and it was so much fun because we get into an instance like, how in the hell are we supposed to accomplish this? Well, the simple answer is we weren't. We weren't made up of the right group, but by God, we figured ways to make it work after failing over and over and over, and that was a lot of fun. There was so much interaction, and then as we got further, the competitive edge started, with Toastich wanting to duel, Terry wanting to be the best at everything, and which then forced us over to Google and to start looking up things that could make us better. And oh my God, what do you know? We can actually enchant our gear and make ourselves better. That's amazing. We must investigate further. And so, then began the learning more and more about the class, and it was such a good time. It was an outright blast. But now, level 85, if I don't got buddies to go in and play, the game is just a static place.
Yeah.
To me.
I started playing a
over
priest
and over again.
Yeah.
I started playing a priest.
Yeah, that's the starting to sound like Gavin. That's the thing, though, as far as like the stories and the single player and the interaction with the environment that we were talking about before, where to make the experience compelling for a single player, or not necessarily a single player, but a smallish party who doesn't have friends to go out with or whatever.
The only catch to that is that within a certain realm of change, within a little variation, you can really only define the game twice, once for each faction, and then after that you're going through the same story, more or less, if you're not really careful. And that's how WoW has ended up. I mean, if I really wanted something that was, I'm not going to say new, I'll say mostly new, that then I would need to go ahead and start playing as an alliance. Now, I mean, I would hate myself, but
I'd be hunting you down every day.
But I could do that, is all I'm saying. And
Yeah.
now, the gameplay would be exactly the same, but I'd see all new areas, all new starting zones, all new story. I've played, I think at this point, I've actually played every single race for the Horde now. And I've seen, at least pre-Cataclysm, I've seen all of the starting zones. And after the first, I don't know, 10 levels, they all kind of merge and become the same chain of quests to get you all the way up to level 80. You have 10 levels that are kind of unique to that race.
Right.
And then they all just kind of become their own thing. So really, if you boil it down, you get 2 stories. One for each faction. That's it. And while I agree with you, Nelson, I really do, that the story's got to be there. It's got to be compelling. That's why I try to put so much love into these stories while I've been writing them. You only get a couple of shots at hooking somebody at that. And then it's got to be the gameplay.
But I've played through Deus Ex 6-7 times.
Yeah, because Deus Ex is an amazing freaking game. Even when you know
Right.
the story by heart, the gameplay will hook you. Go ahead. Sorry.
And the amount of ways you can, because all the levels are built in a way that you can accomplish them depending on what your skills are.
Right, but again, that's
So
a gameplay aspect.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily have to do with the story or interaction level or anything like that.
It's hard to translate that into an MMO because MMO lacks so much gameplay.
Well, MMOs today do.
Yeah, I was about to say,
They
whoa,
have
whoa,
to.
whoa. Why do they have to?
Because of the lag requirements. You can't have the fidelity of a first-person shooter. Yes, there's PlanetSide, but I played PlanetSide, and that still feels like I was playing,
Yeah, Wolf
an
Nightly, because I
MMORPG.
saw, Mr. Steven, I saw you mention that earlier. How do they pull that off? PlanetSide.
Me?
Yeah.
I didn't play PlanetSide.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was you that had said
I could
that.
answer the question if you like, but I'd
Yeah,
be wrong.
answer. Oh, okay. You'd be wrong. Awesome.
Make up an answer.
Wait, that's the best answer ever.
But I'm actually going to jump in. This is reflected even in WoW after a fashion, depending on what class you're playing. For instance, I mean, I've played through at least to level 60 with 3 or 4 different classes now. Mm-hmm. And if well, the first time I went through, I was a warrior. Okay, and a warrior is in many ways the most mundane class in all of World of Warcraft. Your job is to run up and beat on things. That is what you do. You do it really well, but that's what you do. And so it was a very specific experience if I had to go kill somebody. Your quest, your job is to go kill this dude who's over here surrounded by 100 other things that I've got to wade through. I've got to literally drag the bodies up to this final guy and get him killed. So the next time I go through, I play as a rogue. And now I stealth. And I creep past all these guys, go straight up to the dude I'm supposed to kill, shiv him in the ribs, he's dead, cloak and stealth right back out again. Totally different way to play. I've played through as a priest, where I start snagging people at a distance, and I'm able to actually pick a much easier path to get to my target, because I don't jump in there and draw the aggro of like 100 different people, and again drag like 100 bodies over to the final guy to kill him. You see it's just in a different way. Deus Ex had the brilliant thing of, I can use my nano floating eyeball to come over here and stun this guard, and then I can stun gun this guy over here so that I can just walk up to this place and use my binocular. There are so many ways to achieve your goals, but I think after a fashion, you can do that. What I think the limiting factor is for MMOs is not necessarily fidelity, it's the time it takes to design a series of quests that have that much forethought. It's just not done because you have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of quests that have to be written, and so you basically end up, because of time considerations, you end up writing basically one way to go about doing anything, and any variation is minor and only comes into how your class plays the game.
But I feel that that's the reason why I don't play MMOs in the first place.
I hear you. I'm not knocking you at all. I'm just saying I think the really long-winded, pedantic answer everybody just had to sit and endure is just me saying that it could be done.
Just that it hasn't, because...
Just that it hasn't, exactly. Because it wasn't financially viable to do it.
Buzz, it sounded like you were talking about when you were talking about how when you first started playing WoW, it sounds like what really changed was the multiplayer, or not the multiplayer, but the player versus player stuff came in, and then you that's when you really needed to know to get those perfect stats that drives.
That was
Crazy.
well, two things happened that really drove me off to start looking at numbers and all. Is once we got introduced to the concept of how much damage we were all doing during a fight. Once I was introduced to what the concept of DPS was, with damage per second, again, and this goes back into the whole idea of the game, because now it's a competitive thing where it's all right, which one of us is number one on top of the charts pulling off the most DPS. And this isn't even with dealing with PvP. This is still just PvE. But of course it's, oh god, time to start Googling how can I get my damage higher. And then same thing with PvP when you're dealing with other humans. What can I do to improve myself? What can I do with my stats? Because if you don't really learn the ins and outs of everything dealing with your character, you're not going to be performing at optimum. And, you know, all the way up until we got to the higher levels and those things became an issue, we never really realized that there was a way that we could tell how much damage per second we were doing and overall damage per fight we were doing. So, you know, we would go in and we were more interested in just, you know, here's a good example. Aliens. Let's go back to the movie Aliens, and when they were assaulting the area in the compound that had been all gooed up with the alien stuff, and there were aliens up in the walls and everything else, they weren't in there to compare who had the highest number of kills and all. They were in there trying to figure out how to eliminate a very big problem, a big threat. And with Terry and Angie and Toastitch, that's what it was for so long. It wasn't. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved when we started getting into the numbers and trying to outdo each other, because that made the game more rich. But I had an absolute blast for a long time, getting all the way up to that point with problem solving. I am one of the people that don't like going to YouTube and watching a particular fight and then going, oh, okay, guys, we got to run to the left side of the place. When he comes over there and the orange stuff comes out on the right, quickly get that down, then everybody run over to the right side. Why even play the game? I mean, but that's just me. I like getting in there, and it's about discovery and working the problem out. That's fun.
Yeah, because, I mean, for me, I like in a game when I actually die a few times. I mean, just talking about, say, a single-player game, but actually having to go, oh, you know, what can I do now to work this out so I can do a little bit better? Oh, I did a little better this time. Let me try this. Oh, I did a little worse, and until I finally get it. And to me, that's the most satisfying. If I just get it the first time, you know, all the way through the game, then it's
just not,
probably not a very good game.
Yeah, it's just not challenging. I like for games to be challenging, and Blizzard did a good job with World of Warcraft. By no means am I knocking it, because I play it, and I've had a lot of fun with it. There are a lot of things that can be explored. I've had nights where I just went exploring all over the place. That's a blast. We've had nights where we wanted to sneak into the Alliance, you know, Stormwind, and try an assault on them. That was fun. There are times where I like to fire up some TV show, and as horribly feminine as this may sound, go and pick flowers. But that's only because then I go back to the market and do my best to wreck it and get rich overnight.
I was going to advise you not to tell everybody what you were watching.
But hey, that's how I discovered Spartacus.
Just saying.
Thanks to Netflix. But there was definitely a lot of things that could be done, but after a while, all of it becomes boring, except for what you do with your friends, because the world is only so big, and there's only so much in there, to a point that you could back up and call it a static world. In
What
my
did you
opinion.
like? What did you like better? Would you have more fun with at the beginning, or when you, like, do you ever wish you could go back to that place where you didn't know to look at all the stats and look up all that stuff?
I remember times that. What, Zach? What's that look for?
Go ahead. I was just
Okay.
thinking.
I remember times when Terry and I just had such a horrible competition going back and forth. And if either of us would have the opportunity to get into the game before the other person did, just to kill a few more whatevers to get our experience just a little bit past someone else. When we got into the competitive stuff, that was a hell of a lot of fun. And again, that was before we really understood all of the different systems inside and out. But the problem solving with the dungeons, in all honesty, was my favorite time. But the problem is, once you've solved all of these, you've solved them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. There's nothing. You can't do that again. So you have to find new things to get
Exactly.
interested.
Even Zach has had an amazing idea for quite some time that I wish Blizzard would, well, take into consideration, and that is go back to all of the low-level quests. I mean, not quests, dungeons. And then all of the Northrend dungeons, and then all of the Cataclysm ones, and put an epic mode, something above heroic.
Well, yeah, they've already got heroic. I think they should have, wait for it, legendary.
Legendary. That's right.
Legendary.
But you know, Stephen, the problem is, once we've mastered all of those,
Right.
that comes to an
Right.
end too. But the only reason we would like to see that so much is because that would open up 6 more months of awesome gameplay.
You say that, but you know, an interesting way you could handle that is if you took the health of the health and damage output of each of the bosses and mobs within that dungeon, and it was determined on an algorithm based on the number of times you had successfully completed that dungeon. So the more you go through it, the harder it gets, until
Right.
eventually you cannot finish this dungeon.
Right.
Unless and you would have to keep updating your mechanic over and over again. Can you imagine how good you would become at playing your class? Because there wouldn't be any set, we'll just go through this routine. Eventually, it's going to get so hard, that routine doesn't work anymore.
Now, Wolpaw's right. He just, if I'm saying that right, he just said over in the IRC, that's what expansion packs are for. And now I don't know if he's talking to us or to another conversation that's taking place, but
But I think there's little things you can do, because the expansion packs are also finite. And I think there's a couple of little things you could throw in there to make the content that's there.
that's something that Blizzard did for a while, and then of course all attention was focused on Cataclysm and it stopped. I love the micro expansion packs.
Mm-hmm.
The when they put in the whole
Old War,
the
Ice Crown Citadel.
yeah, as they opened up more of that, but a bigger one was the building of the Coliseum, the tournament,
Argent
tournament, as that was being built up, and then suddenly, boom, it's open, and now look at all of these new things my engineer can actually go and learn, and new quests and new, those I actually appreciate it more than Cataclysm. Don't get me wrong, I love Cataclysm. I mean, it's been darn cool, but those things being thrown at you more often kept the game more fresh than seeing a major expansion pack that takes 2 years to complete being
Well, and
thrown
I
at you.
think that's also why a lot of game companies have gone with smaller games that have episodic content.
Right. True.
I know it's not everybody, but it is out there. Downloadable content, that sort of thing. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Sorry. It's interesting because that's when I first heard of MMOs, and they had EverQuest, and that's that's what I imagined it being. I just thought, okay, there's a team of developers that are constantly working on new quests and just feeding them into the game, and I didn't realize it was, it's so much about balance and
But
making
they do have teams that are constantly working on new content, because otherwise the game world would just shrivel up and die off. And then you have your big teams that are constantly working on balance, like you just said. As Ghostcrawler himself said, one of the very highly respected designers for World of Warcraft, he wished that they would have never even put arena combat into World of Warcraft.
I'm sure that's just a nightmare.
Because balancing that out is just.
And apparently the highest, like whatever race dominates the arena just swells. Like if suddenly rogues are doing really well in the arena, everybody starts re-rolling for rogue.
Anyone there?
No, I killed
That's the kind of stuff though that I would like. That'd be cool to get away from. But as far as NATO's like saying, all my ideas are dumb. They're never going to work.
I don't think
Because
he
all I
said
want to do is
that.
play a single-player game and not a multiplayer game. But even subtle things can be done to make the quests more, I think, palatable for someone like me. Like I said before, I don't know if this was a radio show or another one of these things, but we were talking about, or I said something about having quests be a continuation of other quests, or having other quests reference other quests. Even something as simple like that would make the game feel more dynamic.
I agree.
And I'm sorry, that's even done today, at least in my opinion, through the process of quest chains.
Right.
I never got that from the quests that I played in
Okay.
Star Wars Galaxies, EverQuest, or EverQuest 2, because those were the MMOs that I've actually spent time playing in the past. Like, I haven't really spent a lot of time playing WoW. I think I played for a few hours
Okay.
on a trial account, didn't get very far, and it was incredibly boring.
They could probably do a lot more with it. I mean, I haven't, just like Nelson, I haven't had all the experience with it, but just from my understanding, it seems like, more than just fetch quests and, that kind of thing. To
Right.
actually have story that's built, and it's like, oh, this is this because I did, this quest, and, that kind of thing. I don't know how much they really do with that.
I mean, the idea of, again, I go back, apologies for continuing to go back to the real world, but the thought of being dropped off on Alethea, and I'm one of the new colonists that just showed up, and it's not like I'm dropped off and I've got exclamation points above 3 people's heads and I can just start running quests, but more interesting to be dropped off and I've been handed my Welcome to Alethea guide, and I start building my life on this new planet. I don't know. Even World of Warcraft is very linear. Yes, the quests do split off into all sorts of interesting chains a little bit later on. It's very linear when it starts off. I already expressed yesterday how much I would love to see a dynamic world so that you never know the state of anything. I would just really like to see a functioning digital world, I guess, that
Yeah,
is
me too.
interesting to be in.
Right.
Well, getting back to skills, I mean, is this the extent that you wanted this conversation to go, or we should?
Yeah, no, I think pretty much so, because we've gone on for a long time. I've got a lot of notes of what. Let me pull Mr. NATO back over here. I just saw him just a second ago. There we go. I've got a lot of stuff written down that NATO had said, and Zach whiteboarded a bunch of stuff out that we'll save as well. I definitely like body, mind, and soul. That's very nice. I mean, even if we were to put
Even if
things...
to rename them, the concepts are the concept can be broken down into a lot of different directions, and I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does feel very Fable-ish, but I'm not necessarily knocking that. I actually quite liked Fable as a role-playing game for all of its faults, and really the only faults, in my opinion, that Fable ever had was unkept promises. But I think systematically there's some nice stuff there.
Hey, NATO. Wait, somebody was gonna say something. Was that you, Steven?
Yeah, I was gonna talk about what was the game you just? Oh, Fable. Oh, I played a demo of Fable 2, but that's all I did. But it seemed. One thing I really didn't like is how easy. I mean, if I wanted people to like me, all I really had to do is go and make fart noises by them and something. You
I
just
know,
sit
it was
there
just like the real world. That's how I make all of my friends.
But I mean, it's just I thought it was great that it's like you could do that like once, every once in a while, and get a reaction. But just you could just spam it until
sit there and do it over and over again until somebody asks you to marry them.
Yeah. Until they just thought you were the greatest person ever, and then they wanted to follow you around everywhere, and it was just there was no. I mean, I don't know. You don't really get a sense of immersion.
I totally agree with you. Like I said, the only thing that ever irked me about Fable was just the unkept promises and how the game could never ever live up to the hype, like not even hold a candle to the hype of what was promised.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been really neat if I'd much rather have it being based on things that I did and who I was and stuff, and just having that to be something just to add, But I'd rather do a favor for them or talk, every once in a while, talk to them and listen to all the things they want us to talk about.
What you're discussing specifically is the expression system inside of Fable, which I was never a big fan of. I mean, it was cute, and it certainly had its uses for a couple of gameplay mechanics, but overall, I just didn't care for it because I did, like you, I thought it was very drab, because you just look at somebody and the little screen will tell you, oh, well, they like it when you juggle. And so you just sit there and juggle over and over again until they love you. And it's just like, wow, that's so utterly pointless. Why'd they even put that in there?
And you have to do it so much that you hate juggling at the end because you're just, I can't juggle again.
But what I was actually getting at earlier when I was making the comparison to Fable is as you play the game, you're walking down a path and a whole bunch of hobs jump out and they're going to try to kill you. So if you just use your crossbow to pick them all off, they drop skill experience to build up your skill, which makes your crossbow even stronger. Or if you hack them to bits with your sword, you get, whatever it was, strength, I think. You get strength experience, which makes you stronger, obviously. Or if you just use your spells, you would get will experience, which would build up your will, making your spells stronger. As you start mixing and matching your abilities to wipe out a whole bunch of enemies, you'd get like all these little multicolored blobs, each one representing a different one of these skill, strength, or will experience that would all accumulate together, and each one of those would kind of, I want to say they leveled up individually, so I got to use finger quotes when I say level up. All three of those would kind of level up on their own, and you could use those to make yourself stronger. And I thought it was a very neat system, because if you just wanted to be, like Robin Hood, right? And you walk out with your bow and you're just, Dark Lord of the Bow and Arrow. Nobody can touch you. You're like Legolas, man, on steroids. Then you could do that, absolutely. Just use nothing but your bow, and eventually you become the greatest bowman that ever lived. When you didn't have to worry about, I'm going to have to go, grind with my axe for an hour so that I can put a skill point into my bow. It just kind of happened.
And it's kind of awesome because the moment you run out of arrows, you're screwed. You're worthless.
Fortunately, that game had no ammo. It was like WoW is now.
Gotcha.
You're infinite arrow guy.
Gotcha.
Right, but in that game, it was kind of the same as Oblivion, the same problem that you could build up to 100% in everything if you
Yeah, I mean,
long enough.
Flash just said, that was not the way this kind of games is meant to be played. I mean, would you rather us run out and beat on something with our axe so that we can put some skill points into our bow? So that we can become powerful archers by way of using, our axe, because that's how you do it now, basically in an MMO, for the most part.
I like the idea a lot, but I just think so far the execution has made me kind of cringe when I hear the idea. Even though when I first heard it, I'm like, "Oh, that's so awesome! That's great! That's perfect! That's the future!" But
well, they used to have. Rogues used to have lockpicking, which you used to have to go and level your lockpicking. You used to have to go pick locks, to be able to pick low-level locks, to be able to pick the high-level locks. But they took it out because people complained that it took so long to level rogues.
And that's how WoW kind of has grown.
Yeah, I mean,
It has grown on the backs of complaints.
It has. It really has. My understanding from my brother, and I'll tell Zach this because I don't think he knows, but you know, you could go out to Oldham to pick Whiptail, and there's the main river that goes down and splits off into and runs out to the bay that you can fly a circuit on. But the problem was more and more people were showing up, and so it was a fight for getting Whiptail, and I liked it because only the dedicated won at the end of the day that just stuck through it. But now they did a hotfix not too long ago, and the speed in which the Whiptail reprocs, Jimbo said, was absolutely comical. You can. He said he's had times where he's landed,
Just
picked one
stand
up,
at a
came
node.
back, picked one up, came back, picked it up, came back. So he just waited. No. Okay, start flying away, came back. He picked 1,500 flowers in an hour the other day.
Holy heck.
Yeah, so that just kind of blew my mind when I heard that.
Now we're getting all kinds of jokes. Yes, we can learn to play piano with our axe. That's just one example.
I again, going back to the experience thing, and NATO, maybe you can relate to this as well, but looking at it as in a how it defines a person, I've seen where you're now doing some of the higher-end rating content in Cataclysm, correct?
Yeah.
You bastard. Anyways, so wouldn't it be awesome with each boss that you've dropped, even with trash, if all of that is in some way helping to define your actual character? I mean, you're more battle-hardened, think about it, than some guy who's never been into one of those instances or one of those raids, and you were going to pick up a pug, and this guy is wearing all greens, and he's never done anything like that. You're obviously much more battle-hardened. You're much more knowledgeable. You know what to do, how to react, how to handle yourself, where he may just run out, pull all the aggro, have himself killed in 2 seconds flat.
I hate those kind of players.
But
The kind of problem with
Go ahead.
that,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of problem is that with the current people, the average MMO player, which is what a lot of the MMO companies are selling to, they would just go, "Oh, this guy's an asshole, kick from group." And there's nothing. I don't know whether or not they should. I don't know whether or not they should be allowed to do that, or whether or not they shouldn't, because I can see why they go, okay, we want to do this, we want to do it well. Oh god, we're wiping. That's all my repair bills that I have to pay to get all my gear repaired. But then on the other hand, that player, if he's not in a guild that raids, he's never going to get to do any end tier content, and he's never going to get the items that drop from those raid tier contents to be able to go do them. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
I mean, it's
think
funny
a lot
because
of
even though
people
it's a
play-
game, we still can relate to it in the real world. You are more experienced in these newer raids than I am because I've not set foot in any of the Cataclysm raids yet. I mean, it's a fact, is it not?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
would say so.
you've gotten to say hi to, the Bastion of Twilight, damn you, NATO, in which I've not even gone into, Blackwing Descent or anything, damn you, NATO. But you're more
It's research.
you're more experienced. I'm just trying to find ways to help advance people in the game by, again, the experience they've gained.
There is this is going to make some people go, but I'm a big live roleplay fan.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the issues that you get in live roleplay is that because you're when you're having a sword fight, some people are naturally more dexterous than others.
Mm-hmm.
So someone, even though you could have two characters who are identical, one player might be a better swordsman and will, always defeat their opponent who isn't as dexterous, who isn't as experienced. And I've seen this a lot in
Genetics.
games. I just want to point out, I really hate that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Not from a personal level. On a roleplay sense, that's a brilliant idea. If I was playing on a tabletop, I'd love that idea and I'd use it. And as a character, as a way of driving a character, it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
The way of driving an MMO, an MMO character who is essentially a sock puppet with numbers attached at the moment in the standard meta of MMOs, it would just piss players off and they'd leave. Or repeatedly reroll characters until they got a good seed, and then it was a moot point.
Oh,
anyway.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
we
but
jumped
see, the
back.
thing they wouldn't notice. Of course we jumped back. But see, the
okay.
thing is, they wouldn't know what their seed was. They wouldn't realize they weren't good at something until the game progressed.
Yeah, but
And
You know,
I don't like the idea that players aren't getting.
No, but
'Cause
just make sure I
I'm
understand
not-
it. But the bottom line is, though, you want to be able to Google what's the best spec or what's the best way to play my character and get a black and white printout of this is what you do and
No.
you're now the best.
No,
Well,
not necessarily.
at the same time, though, if you can fix your problem of your whatever your, let's say your deficiency,
Mm-hmm.
if you can fix that, then you're still gonna Google a result.
Mm-hmm.
They're just gonna say, all right, you need to make sure you get your base stats to this, that, or the other. So if you got some seed that pushes you away from that, do what you got to do to get it to this level.
Mm-hmm.
Then here's the skill tree you need to be the biggest badass on the planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just a random seed, I don't think is going to get us away from that. It's just one more level of abstraction somebody's going to have to work through.
But we
I
got
don't want players to be, because one of the things I've found in raids is because I've not raided before Cataclysm, so I'm coming into these raids and the people are going, "Oh, he's just like Nefarion," or something like that, and I'm like, "Who? What?" And people will get annoyed at me because I'm new to the game and haven't really done those raids. Now, I don't want. So basically, I'm saying, people who play top tier MMO content are anal and get
Yeah, they
pissed easily.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have someone coming in who goes, "I'm actually quite a good player, but I rolled a character and I found out through playing that I'm not getting the numbers that everyone else is, so perhaps I have a bad seed," and people are just going to go, "Your DPS isn't high enough." Okay. And I really hate that because
I
it
just
immediately.
didn't see what Leah described as it meaning you're just not going to have the DPS that you need to have. I looked at it as being a way of
One more thing you might have to fix.
having you to know or decide the way you want to fight. It might force you to have to take different routes through sets of trees to be able to fight the way you want to fight.
Yeah. I do like something that's just occurred to me suddenly is if we, like you said before, maybe there are 50 skills that you can add, you can enhance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one or two of them are favoured skills, so you gain points in those faster than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even once you've got once you've hit the top, someone who's got top level in sword fighting, and you have top level in sword fighting, you happen to have sword fighting as a favoured ability, you've got a couple of points on them. It's not enough to make a massive difference to the game at top level, but as you're working up, you are better. I'd rather players were slightly better than their opponents and slightly worse than their opponents, because it's it's less of a kick in the teeth. It's sort of everyone's good at something opposed to everyone's deficient in something.
You know,
It effectively has the same result, but I think it's a better way of putting it, because it makes people feel that their character is good at something opposed to their character is crap at something.
I mean, that's just semantics, but
It is, yes, but it's semantics in my brain, because now I've actually put it in a different way, I see how it can be a good thing.
Yeah, but here's, and I'll just flip it around on you, because here's how it goes right back to where you started. Somebody discovers online that the math works out if your character gets this little bonus in one particular skill set based on the seed. So now everybody who doesn't have that is suddenly inferior, and you're right back where you started. It's just semantics.
Yeah, it is. I don't know how to fix. I like the idea. I just don't know how to incorporate it without causing that exact problem.
well, what if we just get away from the whole skill point thing, like, completely, and just start, like, I guess we're doing like a huge, getting back to exactly what we were talking about hours ago, but getting to the point, but going back to going through skill trees, like actual skill trees, actual ability trees. Ability being I can shoot pistols really well, not I have this many points in that aspect.
What I definitely want to get away from, if we ever could, is the one thing I hate about WoW more than anything else is the fact that if I walk into a raid and I don't have these enchants and I don't have these gems and I don't have these points in these parts of my skill tree, and I'm not using this rotation at this time, I don't know what I'm doing.
I think a lot of that is player defined, though. More than anything,
Yeah.
I think that's because you're stuck in a raid with a whole bunch of people who do read things like tank spot and elitist jerks, and so they're watching your rotation, going, "Dude, you're so doing the wrong order, and your timing is way off. L2P, man, you're getting kicked." And I think that's people. I think if you were surrounded by a group of your friends, then it's just going to come down to how you want to play. I know that's how we started out when we were all playing together, and nobody was paying attention to, what's the best rotation? Well, you've got the rotation that works for you, and we start strategizing based on that as our foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I think
we compensate.
I think the whole thing, the whole theory craft, people looking stuff up online, etc., and so forth, just boils down to that top tier absolutely must be the best hard-ass anal player, which is fine. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or left, right, whatever. I'm just saying that is not the game. That is something that players are bringing to the environment, not something that's defined by Blizzard or WoW at all. I think it's unfair for you, Lee, to say that that's something you hate about Warcraft. I think that's right for you to say you hate that about Warcraft players.
But as
Okay, I'll give you that.
game designers, isn't our responsibility to make sure that things like this don't happen?
I don't
in the society
to a certain. Okay, I don't think you can reprogram society. I think you can. I think you can change things.
No, but you can give them different constraints.
You can, and I think they're just going to find a new way to apply the same mentality to those constraints. So don't worry about that. Make the game fun, make it make sense, and then, yeah, you're going to, and you will, just write it off as a law that you're going to have that super anal, you must be the best person ever player who is going to go through the theory craft and look stuff up online and try to have the world's best rotation, and they're going to just castigate anybody who doesn't do the same thing because that's how some people are. But that's not the game.
Right, but when I go into an RPG and I don't fully, completely understand every single little ramification of each individual skill point I put into each individual one of my slots, I don't feel like I'm playing the game right. And then especially the thing I hate the most about RPGs is when I do build out a character to the best of my understanding of the skill system, and then I get to a point where I can't go past that point. I always am afraid that, did I, when I created my character 3 hours ago, did I screw up somewhere, or am I just not playing this one part right? That's another thing that I can't
But aren't you
stand.
going to
That's
still
one
have
of the-
that same problem with skill trees?
Yeah.
Like, did I study the right skill tree that I was interested in?
A skill
That
tree
shouldn't be
is
true, though,
complicated to allow
because
players to have-
I'm going back to Deus Ex, if I'm the master in pistols, or if I'm the master in hacking, either way I could get through at any level, any given level. And that
I
has to
think
do with
the
the game
point-
design.
I think the point is that any skill tree system, anything like that is complicated enough to give players in an MMO setting, which is a long-term game play. How long does it take to play through Deus Ex on average?
Probably like a day or two, not continuous play.
Yeah, an MMO is designed to be played over months. So you'd have a system that's a stat system or a skill system that's complicated enough to be able to give. You need to be able to weigh out leveling up in whatever way you want to handle it. I'd use leveling up in terms of getting an X skill point, getting an X whatever, and having a system of skills that's complicated enough to allow players to do that, have fun doing it, but not have the what is the best skill tree thing. I don't think you can have both, because once you get past a certain level of skill, even talents in WoW, you get how many points now? 20 odd.
Yeah, they reduced it quite a bit from what it used to be when they took out a lot of the talents.
Then you've got maybe 20 talents you can pick from. You have 25 points put into it, and people already straight off the bat went, "This is the best build." Statistically looking at the numbers. Now you can argue that because WoW's developed from WoW's been along so long and around so long that people will automatically theory craft and work out exactly what the best build is from any given data because that's what they're used to doing. But I don't know. Any system will have, like Zach said, the anal people.
I don't think you'll get away from that.
Want to target. It's how you want. Because one thing I don't think we've talked about is exactly how we are approaching what game design philosophy we are using. Are we basically taking marketability and throwing it away, or are we taking it into account with a nodding wink, or are we developing it as a studio would? Because we have to pick we have to kind of pick. It is a scale, and we have to pick somewhere on that scale to go with. I don't think we should say hard and fast. We are not doing this, but yeah, because I'm more very. Okay, this is a good idea, but would it be done this way if we were trying to sell this? And I'm not saying immediately off the bat yes or no, but taking that into account, I don't know how other people feel.
Doesn't marketability create, or doesn't uniqueness create marketability? At least uniqueness from WoW?
Yes, but if you insert, like I was saying before, if you insert a random seed generator that changes how your character plays, you're going to have a whole sect of people who will go, "I don't like that element, so I'm not going to play the game." Because
don't we already have whole sets of people who say, "I can't believe you play WoW, it's just a number mashing thing"?
Yes, it's true.
I mean, you're not going to get away from whole sets of people at all. You're just asking which way are we going. I'm just looking for a new kind of gaming experience that has not been done yet, something fun, something innovative. I mean, if nobody else in the world likes it, but at the end of the day, everyone in this class, or a lot of people in this class, and us managed to put something together that is new and a lot of fun, that's awesome. And then who knows, a lot of other people might enjoy it as well. I just don't want to say, well, for marketability, let's look at WoW. They've got 12 million subscribers, so they're marketable. So we need to make sure that this is what we're, the mold we're following in, because this is what is accepted by MMO players.
I think it's also trying to extract what is done by other companies for marketability, and then what has been seen to not work.
It may be marketable, but it's. I mean, I don't find it particularly fun. At least, I only played the beta. That was a long time ago. But when I've tried different MMOs. I haven't been into it, but it'd be nice if this game could also include me, and I would go, wow, this is fun to play. So. Yeah, just as another thought. Also, oh man, my thought just went away.
Oh, did we lose somebody?
Are you guys still there?
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, everybody's still there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He lost his train of thought.
Oh, okay.
Where he was going.
I lost my train.
It's all
I lost
good.
my train of thought, but I had a few thoughts. So you talk about a problem with the seed thing. Is back when you were saying that there'd be ways to get around that, or not to get around, but you would be able to like say study or do things that would allow you to build in the skill that you're lacking.
Right.
But I think at a point people would just go for that skill, and they would just keep doing that until they maxed that out, and then they would still have the looking like, okay, I've maxed that out, and they would still look online and figure out
the seed idea only works. Thinking it through now in my head, the seed idea only works if you throw classes out the window. If you throw sort of, I'm going to make a human rogue or a
so that it's
Raptor or whatever.
so basically, Nita, what
So
you're saying, so it's more or less wide open as far as what you want to craft yourself into being, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's sort of, oh, I seem to be good at magic, then I'll sort of do magic-y stuff, or oh, I seem to be good at whatever.
Between you and I, not like we have anyone else listening, and some of the discussions that Zach and I have had around here, that's kind of what we've talked about, where we have corporations on the human side that we can align ourselves with that give special perks and abilities. We have houses that
So
we can
reputation-based
align
things.
ourselves with on the Alethian side that have special perks and abilities, but it would be interesting that if you were able to design the hybrid class-like character that you wanted to build. So you could be an average jack of trades, you could be amazing at something specific.
You know, and I don't think I just want to throw this out real quick. I don't think this whole seed thing really needs to be the death of it all, so to speak. I think it's an interesting aspect, but if anybody who hasn't played it, and I'm just gonna, for whatever reason, assume that most of you either have or can play Oblivion now because it is old and kind of cheap. When you're creating your character in Oblivion, one of the things you can do, you can choose your class, or you could actually make a class up, which was always really cool. I think that's what I always did, and came up with some really ominous-sounding names, so I was like a badass. But the last thing you could do is choose the star sign under which you were born. And that would give you some inane little perk, like people born under the sign of the steed could run faster. Just a little bit, just a little perk. And you just treat it just like that. But just like being born under a sign, you don't get to choose that. You
Right.
Just pop, boom. And,
Yeah, that'd be better.
And make it
That
something.
doesn't really solve that problem.
Right. You make it something that's not going to give somebody a significant, all-powerful advantage. It's like, well, guess what? You were born with the power over life and death. You know, it's so awesome. Go out, click the win button, and you're good because you got the right random roll. But if it just had some
So
little
I'm getting
thing,
anal about it because it's a really nice idea. I just can't tie it into.
well,
my
I'll give you
images.
one. I'll give you something that you could tie it into. Think about all the stupid little inane racial passives in WoW, because you're a WoW player. And because really, just about any of the useful racial passives these days have been nerfed into oblivion. So they're all almost useless. Thank you, Will of the Forsaken. It's almost pointless now. But they're all there. So what if that wasn't a quote-unquote racial passive? What if it was just some sort of random passive that you just get by creating a character? And they're just like, here, since you started a character, we're going to give you this stupid little ability that may help you when you're at a lower level, or may help you as you do this, that, or the other. But it's unique, and it's yours, and there you go. If you don't like it, fine, don't use it. Or by all means, roll another character. I don't care.
Yeah.
But that sort of defeats the purpose.
And some people will do that anyway. That's what I need to make sure I hammer that into your skull, especially, Nelson. It's just like the people who will take the time to look up the best rotation, the best spec, or whatever you want to call it. No matter how you change the nature of the game, there will always be that top 10 percentile who absolutely must be the best. And for those people, they will defeat the purpose of the game time and time again because they are playing it for an entirely different reason than the one you designed it for.
Okay, cool, but
It's
I think you're
exactly the
getting
same
away
way
from
now.
the reason why I dislike it in the first place, and that's when I'm a new person getting into the game, I feel like I'm obligated to look at all of these established roles or established character builds, just because if I don't do that, I feel like I'm not playing the game right, and I'm not going to be able to succeed. Just like how I said, 30 minutes ago, where if I'm in an RPG and I get to a point where I can't progress, I'm always worried that I didn't build my character right.
And
if
I
we can get away from
assure
that,
you,
that
Nelson,
is the biggest reasons why I don't like RPGs.
yeah, I assure you, you're at least more paranoid about that than I am.
Also, I think you'd find if you actually sat down and played WoW and got up to level 85, you would become one of those people who want to look up and get the perfect rotation.
Well, see, what I was trying to get with the genetics is throwing it off enough where there is no perfect rotation for one.
I agree.
Where a spell might be a fraction of a second a little slower for you, or this spell is a little bit faster. So now your rotation that is ideal for the character that you rolled is different for you than it is for Joe Blow over there. So now there is no perfect spec. There is no perfect rotation. You have to figure out what is best for your character and your character alone.
You would have to make the difficulty level of high tier raids relatively lower to current sort of WoW standing. So basically in some raids, if everyone's not doing everything perfectly, you'll completely mess up. But I don't like that though. I'm not defending that. I'm just saying that would be the repercussion of having a system where you can't necessarily have a predicted outcome of a combat.
Are we still talking about seeds?
I think we are, unfortunately.
Vaguely.
No.
Just a way
Sorry,
of
we'll
varying it.
move off that. It's just it got me as a really good idea. I just couldn't rationalize it away.
What are we talking? Are we talking about randomness in fighting, or?
Well, I real quick, I want to pull us back to something a second ago that I heard, or at least I thought I heard NATO choking on, and that was about classes. If there was no classes.
I don't think there should be any classes.
Oh, okay.
And as the way it's going, I originally pictured there being classes, but I'm thinking with looking at everyone else's ideas. I don't think classes work with the vision we have.
Okay, good. Because I thought when I said that we'd been talking about that, I thought I heard you having a small heart attack or something.
No, I came up with an idea of basically to keep putting it in WoW terms, but talent into a class.
Yeah.
So you pick a certain random
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's kind of something that we've been
go down a
discussing.
particular route, you become a fire mage, but you from the start of the game you are a spod who can become any number of things. You can become anything in the game you like, and progress down.
You are what you
That's
do.
basically what they did in Oblivion.
Even
Kind of,
more
you had to
open than
choose
that.
your major minor skills in Oblivion, but it is what they did in Star Wars Galaxies. I don't believe there were any stats you had to pick at the beginning of the game,
That's
were
an
there?
idea. A slight idea that's just occurred to me of having this ties into something Gav was saying in terms of a screen comes up and you have to select what you want, and you spend half an hour going, oh, do I want ability A or ability B, and then you've lost the suspension of disbelief and your flow and everything. You could set a point on a talent tree like layout. I want this ability because this sounds really cool, and the game. I don't know how easy this would be coding-wise, but the game logically works out what abilities are best acquired to get to that ability. And it might not be the best option, but it'll get you there. And then if you want to go back and tweak it, then you can feel free, or if you want to go back and reset your target, as it were. So it's a sort of automated leveling system of a kind. I'm just throwing out ideas. I'm not saying that.
No, I'm
this is what-
listening. I'm listening very carefully to everything that you've had to say.
I mean, DMJ posted something to me right back at the start when we were talking about the stat system I'd come up with. And it was a wheel system where you had the body, mind, and soul at the center of this wheel. And then on a sort of radiating tier out, you had the different levels. And what was touching I can't explain it, but basically it was a radial system of what was touching what, got calculating something. And that made me think of this, in Final Fantasy, there are I've not played it much, but there's the sphere maps of, you buy skills on a map-based system from one point you start on. And if talents were like that, but certain ones of them were locked off depending on if you've bought other things, and yeah.
Is that 8?
Is an interesting idea. I'm mostly babbling, but I'm tired. But I'll look into that.
I think it was Final Fantasy 8 that did that.
I don't know. I've never played a
Wasn't
Final
that 10?
Fantasy game in my life.
Was it
I've
10?
watched people do it. Yeah, it's that stats thread that's
Yeah, they're
posted
saying
as an
they're
image.
saying Final Fantasy X. All right, yeah, and I just because we're almost at 1 hour. We will be wrapping this up soon. I know for some of you guys, the Sun. Oh, Zach, what did you throw in?
Oh, I just added to your point earlier. I just said that because I know that some people are getting sick of hearing the word WoW, but I just want people to understand World of Warcraft is still the most popular MMO on the planet.
True.
And there are so many problems that it has approached, and so many people are playing it that I think we would be irresponsible not to at least look at some of the problems that it has approached, that it has conquered. With it being as ridiculously popular as it is, I think it'd be stupid of us not to look at it and say, well, here's what they're doing wrong, or here's what could be improved, or here's what they're doing right, and we definitely need to incorporate this because it has become a convention. Look at how first-person shooters changed when Halo came out. Like after Halo came out, every first-person shooter suddenly played like Halo. Why? Because it became a convention. Play Lord of the Rings Online. A lot of that little aspects of it, or play Rift, which is the new one, and a lot of little parts of that feel just like WoW because parts of WoW have become a convention. So I think it's with something this big, and whether you like it or not, I'm not asking you to like it. I'm asking you to respect that gaming just as a whole, is based greatly on convention. And you can step away from that, but in a lot of cases, you do that at your own peril.
Yeah, it also provides us a very nice
Look at
middle ground for discussing some of these ideas where it's a common language for a lot of you that have been playing it that are trying to get across ideas on things you do and do not like.
Well, Q-Man said, look at where Halo is now. What do you mean? They had the wildly successful Reach. And then look at games that it ended up spawning because you had games where it's like, okay, Gears of War, where it's like, all right, well, we like Halo, but how can we improve on that? Well, we'll take the camera and put it over the player's shoulder, and then it'll be pretty much the same game, but prettier.
Hey, Halo, isn't that the game they're rebooting in November?
Exactly. I mean, it's made some people a whole lot of money. And I'm not picking on any one game and saying it was good, bad, or sideways. I hated Halo 2, for the record, but it was still a very playable game. Anyway, I'm just saying there are conventions that are set up. There are things that you need to look at. Who's done what in the MMO world, and the biggest player in the champion of Capua is WoW right now. And so I think we need to look at the strengths and weaknesses of something, a common ground, and WoW is the perfect candidate, whether you like that or not. And if you're tired of hearing it, just disconnect. I totally understand.
As you say, it is a convention, and the thing is when you've got something that is that big and has become a convention, people and new players expect your game to at least play very similar to whatever the convention is, and if it doesn't, they will step away and just absolutely hate your game.
And I'm not saying every single mechanic needs to suddenly be a convention so we make a WoW clone. That's the
God,
furthest
no.
thing from what I'm saying. See, and there you go, falling right into the trap I just mentioned. Dilbertian, whatever, said, I thought this was going to be new and innovative. New and innovative does not necessarily mean abandoning all convention. I still stress that, as far as I'm concerned, you abandon all convention at your own peril when you're trying to get a lot of people to do anything.
But how can something be defined as new and innovative if you don't take a look at what's there?
Precisely.
Because if you don't, then you may turn around and accidentally build exactly what was already there and say, oh, man, I wish I would have known that to begin with. So, and like I said, for me it works really well because NATO's done exactly like I asked him to a couple months back, which is get into World of Warcraft, start playing it, find the things he likes, does not like, etc. And so now he's able to speak in WoW terms, and that's very helpful. And around here, we also have invested a lot of time in it also. Yeah, the point is I'm wanting to see something that's innovative and new, without a doubt. But again, it just at the moment provides a good middle ground for discussing elements that we could branch off from and make much more robust than what's currently being provided, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And one sec, sorry. And I just wanted to point out what I said a second ago. I really want to in the IRC about the, if the discussion gets into something that you're bored of hearing, I totally understand. I respect that, and you can just disconnect instead of saying in there that, oh God, I hate this, because by the time this MMO class is over with, I have no idea how much of content we're going to go through, and I can guarantee you that not every single person is going to like every single thing that we're going to record. The only reason that I've made Zach and some of you guys suffer staying this long is because I've been listening and taking notes very carefully to things that NATO has to say, Lee's had to say, Gavin, Stephen. These are all things that are interesting to me, and I'm filing all of these things away. It's not that where some of you guys felt like, oh God, we've gone back in circles. The seed thing is still something that's important to me, because that's interesting at a fundamental level. I don't know yet how something like that could be applied in such a way that it's a really good thing. But I like the concept of everybody being unique. That's very interesting to me. But anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
And I just wanted to send this out. Matroblend says, I think you should build from your story and let that decide. Well, I mean, if that was up to me, then the game would be a text adventure. The best MMO ever. It would be the world's first massively multiplayer text adventure.
And Q-Man, where you're saying just comparing WoW, it can be bad. It's why I started playing Rift. I've got several free-to-play MMOs that we've played with. It's like I've tried a good portion of different MMOs, so where applicable, I'll try to introduce those as well. It's just that WoW has an overwhelming population of people who've played it at some point.
Right.
Yeah, and I've looked at Aeon, and I hated that.
That's so true.
Anytime that I have to pay to fly faster is a mechanic of a game where I cease to want to play.
And yeah, I heard it's the ultimate grind fest. Okay, somebody was about to say something.
Yeah, the idea here is to make something that we think is better, not to just arbitrarily change things that have been done that are maybe good. I mean, there can be things you can use in WoW that are good, but I think our focus is on things that we would like to either improve upon or add to that,
or get away from.
Or get away from. Yeah, absolutely.
For a reason, because we think that would be cool. We're not gonna, if there's something that's already cool, we're not gonna go, well, let's get rid of it just to put something else in there.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, I want a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's bottom line. But anyway, Zach just pointed to the thing, and we're an hour and 7 minutes in, so this is definitely a good spot to go ahead and just call it for tonight. Where some of
I did remember what I forgot, by the way.
Oh, what'd you forget?
I did. Do you want me to save it for another time?
No. Go ahead.
No, get it out before you forget it again.
Oh, it was just I think it was NATO. I'm not sure who was saying it, but talking about how the about all the stats and how you needed to have it really robust to last in the amount of hours that you put into an MMO game. Isn't that, did I get that right? Is that what?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, I mean, I was thinking, like, what, I mean, yeah, that's an important element, but does it necessarily need to be the game driving element? I mean, it's like, it seems like that is, and I don't necessarily, even though I enjoy that aspect, I don't necessarily find that so compelling that that's why I go to a game, because I'm like, oh, this game has great stat system. It's that's great that I want the stat system to not interfere with my gameplay, but I want it I want it there to enhance, but it's not enough. I'm not like, someone tells me there's this great stat system game, it's like, oh, I don't like not ask what the rest of the game is like. I'm just like, well, sold. I want that stat system. So It seems like what I would be really interested in exploring is how to get some of the focus off of just the stat system and on the actual the gameplay and the
The reason for having,
the story and just exploring this world, which I think Jason's like dynamic world, all the things that he's trying to get there would really make it more interesting. And so he's like, oh, I want to explore this world. I want to interact with it. Not just I'm coming here to build stats. So it's like I think even if your stats were maxed out, you could still do a lot of stuff. I mean, you could still have a lot of enjoyment if the game is solid enough to compel you to want to explore it and interact with it, and that is why you were there.
The point I was trying to make about the stat system is that it needs to be complicated and interesting enough so that it still stands up to the player who's there for that after a couple of months of play, so that it's still enjoyable and it's fun and doesn't break down into the same trope that WoW has of run 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 on the numpad.
Okay, well, what if?
But I'm not. I am primarily a role player, so I completely understand where you're coming from. I'm just very aware that it's very. You can say, oh, I really want to focus on gameplay, and I really want to get the player in there, and picking up all this stuff and doing cool quests and whatnot. But you need to learn to crawl before you can walk.
Right.
And we need a base. You need a basis to work off. And the stronger your base is, the better you can, the better you can create.
Right. But what I think is that if the gameplay is good enough, it doesn't necessarily matter if it takes 2 months or if it takes a year to get up to where you are maxed out or where you want to be. Because if it was just fun to play. You go, okay, I had that an initial part. Now I'm just having fun with what I set up. I set this up, and now my character is the way I want it to be, and here I am having fun playing this game.
The thing about an MMO is that there are every person playing it is playing it for a different reason. And when they say massively, it's not just 5 or 6 people. It's hundreds of people, possibly thousands of people. Each are coming for a different reason. Some of those reasons can be grouped into sort of overarching groups, like some people want PvE, some people want PvP. The problem is you have to make a system. I'm not just talking about a stat system, I'm talking about a world and all the information, all the quests and all the everything that's in the game. You have to make that so it can fit with as many people's desire, of many people's view of what an MMO should be and what they're actually coming to do and enjoy, which is one of the reasons why you can sit down and play WoW in about 6 different ways. I'm not saying that you're not right. We should, one of the things I really want to do, one of the things I sort of signed up for when I said, hey, Jason, can I come on board and help you with this MMO, was quest writing, quest chains, and making a story that the player will find absolutely so difficult to tear away from. They're not going to care about their stat system. But I know there are loads of people that will come for the stat system. I also know that because from tabletop RPGs and whatnot, it doesn't matter how good the story is. If the player has to then go, okay, right, I want to kill the dragon. How do I kill the dragon, guys? What do I roll? What do I do? So you have to make a system that's complicated to give you the diversity you want, but that's easy enough for everyone to understand, and that's incredibly difficult.
Okay, well let's go.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and call it right here. Otherwise, we will start just re-exploring a lot of the things that we've talked about. But this has given me some interesting ideas, some things for us to discuss around here, and back with you guys again very very shortly to let you know kind of our thoughts. But the whole idea of this weekend was for Zach to share the Alethian backstory, which he did yesterday, and for those of you that have yet to hear that, please do so. And then and then was really to hear from you guys some of your takes, and it's really kind of shaped up into talking about the stat base, or how a character measures themselves, or a player measures themselves attribute wise. And it's definitely been some very interesting conversation, and I really do appreciate all of the time that you guys have invested tonight, and NATO, all of the time you and Gavin as well have spent putting ideas together. It's really appreciate it. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up right here, and I will start getting these videos encoded and get them put up for anyone that would like to listen to them. We'll go ahead and end this video, so thank you very much for those of you that were watching, and that concludes all of class meeting number 4. Thanks.
Good night, folks.